Let's talk about transphobia in sports. There's so many conversations around trans inclusion in sports. We have state houses all over the United States that are passing bills to make sure that no trans kids are allowed to play sport at any level in their state. And I just think that this is a huge travesty. The science that we have now says that transgender women do not hold an unfair biological advantage over cis women.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about LGBTQ, maybe trans influencer by the name of the Jonathan Van Ness, who broke down in tears on Dax Shepard podcast when discussing the issue of biological boys competing against biological girls in sports, aka transgender women competing against biological women in sport.
Wish that the trans woman athlete had access and could play and follow her dreams. I do. Will I elevate her rights over women? We're pretending that women aren't the ultimate marginalized class throughout history. People who have written cervix have her. And she goes, no, there's a name for us. You can't steal my identity to help your cause.
There isn't legitimate questioning going on. There is like a public targeted onslaught towards queer people. It's a boogeyman to make us feel that our girls are being attacked, that their things are being taken away. With fairness in sport, honestly, I wanted to come chat about my podcast like other shows.
We're going to do that. We're going to do that. I did not intend at all to get into a debate with you about this. I didn't want that at all. I adore you. I think you're hysterical and talented, and I love that you're an activist.
I could just cry because I'm so tired of having to fight for little kids because they just want to be included. I wish that people were as passionate about little kids being able to be included or grow up as they were about fictitious women's fairness in sports. I have to tell you, I am very...
Yeah, so you see now you heard that, okay? During that podcast, that individual broke down in tears because he got a little pushback against his opinion that trans women should be allowed to compete against biological women in sports and that, hey, this is unfair. So again, this person breaks down in tears because they believe that trans people don't have the opportunity to compete in sports when that's just totally not true, right? And that's the point of this video, is to continue to push back against this idea that being for women's fairness in sports means that you are against trans people being able to participate in sports. That's not a thing, right? There's nobody trying to ban trans people from being able to compete in sports or keep them out of sports. However, that is what the left is saying, okay? And that is what this video is about. It really has nothing to do with this individual as much as it has to do with his arguments. And I have to make that disclaimer because YouTube likes to mark videos like this as hate, right? When again, this video is essentially addressing this person's argument. It really has nothing to do with this person. It's just the arguments, right? So that's just my disclaimer for the YouTube moderator. So without further ado, let's play this video that this person posted on Instagram in which they are basically explaining why they believe what they believe about, women's sports and transgender issues.
Let's talk about transphobia in sports. There's so many conversations around trans inclusion in sports. We have state houses all over the United States that are passing bills to make sure that no trans kids are allowed to play sport at...
Okay, so that's not true, right? This is false. Okay, there's not one bill that the GOP has passed that bans trans kids from being able to compete in sports. Okay, that is an outright lie. It is false. Nobody's proposing that. It simply just requires that you compete based off your biological sex, which is in the best interest of the transgender individual and the biological girl and biological is in the best interest of everybody involved, okay, because of how basic biology works.
At any level in their state. And I just think that this is a huge travesty. The science that we have now says that transgender women do not hold an unfair biological advantage over cis women. So that's what...
The science that we have now says that transgender women, who, again, just by definition are biological males, do not hold an advantage over biological women in sports. Again, this is just going against just the basic facts of what we know about biology, what we know about the difference between biological males and biological females. Now, even if a transgender woman decides to take drugs to lower their testosterone, okay, and to try to even things out, if that person started transitioning after puberty, it's not going to completely erase the advantages, okay? Especially, again, if you're talking about a fully developed trans woman, biological male, just suppressing their testosterone is not going to be enough to eliminate the advantages, okay? And we should not have children transitioning before puberty. So there should be no scenario in the ideal world where it would be fair, or you could even make an argument that a biological male, doesn't have some significant advantage over a biological woman because, they started transitioning before puberty. No, that should never be a thing. So there should be no situations where, we can say that, oh, well, it might be fair. It's just not fair. There is no science supporting the idea that there is no difference, or that biological males don't have an advantage over biological females in sports. It's just, there is no science supporting that. Again, this is just made up. They just say things, and then they think that people are just supposed to believe it, even though it clearly is just not true. And you don't need to go read a bunch of studies to actually understand this reality, okay? Even though there are plenty of studies out there that show the advantages that biological males have over biological females in sports. But just look at all the world records, right, in the Olympics, okay, or any athletic event. They're all dominated by men, right? Men have the best performances in the world. I mean, it doesn't matter what the event is. For the most part, I mean, probably 99% of the time, a man is going to outperform a woman in regards to just raw performance, okay? That's just a fact. This is a fact.
What the science says. But let's just say, now what so much of the rhetoric is as well, if someone has gone through a male puberty, and they've ever experienced that male puberty, then they will always be unfair to play women's sports, and we have to protect women's sports, so we can't have anybody who's experienced a male puberty in women's sports if it's a trans woman. So
we shouldn't have any of it, period, because there should be no children transitioning before puberty, right? They shouldn't transition before 18, and they definitely shouldn't transition before puberty, right? So I just want to make that clear. Okay, I just want to make that clear. That's important, right? That's very important.
Okay, let's say that that's true, even though the science does not support that. But let's say that that is true. So now, though, we have in dozens of states in the United States that have outlawed gender-affirming care for trans kids. So if there was a young trans girl who let's say wanted to be a figure skater or a gymnast or a golfer or whatever the hell, she wouldn't be able to access the hormone blockers that would make it so that she would not go through a puberty. So do you see how we have governments and then we have governing bodies of athletics that are making it so trans people can't play sports anyway?
Again, this is just not true. This is just a flat out lie. All it is. First of all, again, to continue to say that the science does not support the reality that males have an advantage over females in sports. Again, it tells you everything you need to know. This is all ideological, right? This has no basis in actual real science. It's just ideology here. But again, this overarching idea that trans people are being banned from sports is just silly. Competing based off your biological sex, being mandated to do that, is not a ban on trans people in sports. You can compete among people of your same sex, or you can compete among other trans people. That's not a ban, right? By definition, that's not a ban. It's not a ban.
But not only has trans women been able to play tennis and swim for the last 2 decades, how many Olympic trans tennis players or swimmers can you think of? Exactly, 0. So
yeah, but I can think of some who probably would swim at the Olympic level, like, for example, a Leah Thomas. Okay, a Leah Thomas probably could swim at the Olympic level if the Olympics didn't block Leah Thomas from being able to compete, because, again, Leah Thomas has an unfair advantage. Again, so we are starting to see trans athletes go out here and to put up Olympic level numbers competing against the opposite sex.
But
we also are seeing transgender powerlifters that are, biological male that compete among women. They're breaking women's records. Okay. We did have a transgender athlete competing at the Olympics in weightlifting. Okay. So we have seen this.
and so often we hear about how, trans people, we have higher instances of murder, but it's not only murder and violence trans people face. We also face larger instances of unemployment, higher instances of housing insecurity. Why do you think it's harder for people to hold down jobs? Why do you think it's harder for people to get houses? Well, here's the thing. When I was growing up, I got to play sports. And when I played those sports on teams, I learned about rejection. I learned about how to overcome an obstacle. I learned how to work together. I learned people skills. And when we take away the rights of kids to play sports with their peers, where you learn about that sort of thing, we're doing a huge injustice to trans kids for just not letting them play. I mean, this is not only about Olympic medals, it's also about society and about allowing people to learn and grow together and to not bully people. And
no, it's about special rights and privileges. That's what it's about. It's about being able to do whatever you want to do and not have anybody criticize you or say that, hey, we believe that what you want, we don't agree with it, we think is wrong. That's what it's about. It's not about any of this other stuff this person's talking about, because again, trans kids are not being banned from competing in sports. If they really want to compete in sports, they compete among their sex or they compete amongst other trans kids, and that's fine, and they'll learn all those lessons, right? But if they choose not to play a sport because they can't compete among the opposite sex, then that's them. They're banning themselves, right? Nobody's banning them. They're banning themselves. So, again, all of this, again, you hear what's going on here, right? You're getting into, woe is me, we're victims, and this is just, we've heard this before, right? It's not that you don't have all your rights. You have every right that everybody else has. You just want special rights. You want to be able to do things that other people can't do.
And we are literally legalizing bullying against trans kids under the guise of protecting girls' sports. Here's the thing about sports. Sports are dangerous. If you go to do gymnastics or soccer, you could sprain your ankle. You could break your foot. You could break your toes. And that happens all the time in sports right now.
Yeah, but you are significantly increasing your chance of getting hurt when you have biological males and biological females competing against each other. Again, these are very simple, basic concepts that these individuals don't seem to be able to grasp about the reality of biology. Okay? Yes, women can get hurt playing sports against other women. Yes, it happens. But they're less likely to get hurt as a result of their opponent having a significant advantage biologically over them in the form of more muscle mass, strength, bone density, height, whatever you want to name it. They're less likely to get hurt because of significant biological differences competing amongst women or people of the same sex versus, again, competing against somebody of the opposite sex. Again, this is not hard stuff to grasp. This is easy kindergartner level concepts.
It happens all the time. Sports are inherently dangerous. Sports are inherently unfair. If your parents don't have money, let's say the next Michelle Kwan lives in Mississippi, the state of Mississippi. There's no figure skating rinks there. What if her parents don't have money to get her figure skates and the best coaching? Is it fair that rich kids can afford better coaches and better facilities?
So let's make it more unfair, right? See, you hear the argument that this person's making. Well, sports is already unfair because of these small reasons, right? That, we as a society, it hard to really deal with, okay? But let's make it more unfair by allowing something that we just shouldn't allow, right, as a society, okay? Something that is easy to not allow, okay? It's easy to avoid having this problem. No. Let's just make it more unfair, right? Because there's some other small things that make sports unfair. Therefore, we got to make it more unfair. It's totally fine to do that. Again, this is just, it makes no sense. It's not grounded in any type of logic.
Does that mean that rich kids shouldn't be able to play sports? No. So this is so much all wrapped up in transphobia. And also, by the way, if your state house has passed a bill against trans inclusion in sports, the amount of energy that we've spent on legislating against trans people, we have much bigger problems than allowing trans kids to play sports. So That's why I think we should
they always say that. They love to say that as an excuse to not push back against what is happening right in school, right? They love to say that, well, why do you want to take the time to focus on us, right? Well, because what happens is that when you're pushing this type of stuff in school, yeah, we have to now take the time to make sure that, you know, we're not putting women in a situation where they may be uncomfortable, or where, again, there's an increased likelihood of them getting hurt as a result of being forced to share a space or to share a playing field with an individual of the opposite sex. So, you know, again, when you're arguing with these type of individuals, it's extremely frustrating because, you know, they're just not in touch with just like basic facts about the world. And when you're arguing with somebody that's not in touch with the basic facts of the world, it's nothing you can say to convince them that what they're pushing for is just incorrect, right? Most people in this country do not agree with this individual and what they're saying. Most people in this country know that what this individual is saying makes absolutely no sense. But here we are, again, having this debate because, you know, our society has fallen off a cliff when it comes to some of these issues. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.